Hello everyone, today we got a very exciting video. I'm actually going to be starting to track my Roth IRA journey so you can watch the gains. What do I buy? What do I sell? I wish I documented my individual account because the gains are very serious and they're amazing. But if I could do it once, I could do it twice. So I'm glad that you're joining me for this journey. The rule of thumb is we're going to be comparing our Roth IRA to the S&P 500, and the goal is to outperform the S&P 500. If I'm not outperforming, might as well just buy the S&P 500. But I'm going to show you the power of stock picking the right companies, and the gains you could do. Today we're also going to talk about Google versus Apple, see who I really like. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about Air India and the crash that happened, which is very, very unfortunate. But let's get to this. So now, currently my Roth IRA is $14,430 for the year to date. So from January 1st till now, which is June 12th, we are up 21% with a gain of $2,500. And year to date, so from June of 2024 to June of 2025, we're up 35% and with a gain of 3,790. So now let's go to the S&P 500 and see what we have. So the S&P 500 year to date is only up 3%. So that's from January 1st till today, June 12th. And from June to June, where the S&P 500 is up 11%, almost 12. So far, we are outperforming the S&P 500. And let me show you. If you look at my stocks, what I have Amazon, I have Nvidia, I have Google. Shocker, they're all in the S&P 500. But that's the power of stock picking. If you pick the right companies, not everything is a good company in the S&P 500, and not everything is undervalued. So if you talk about, for instance, like companies like Apple, which I think are very overvalued and they're not being innovative, I'm not buying Apple. I'm instead of buying Amazon, Nvidia, and Google. So that's the power of stock picking. I'm going to show you my buys. Right now, I have to contribute left is 5,433 for the year because I could only contribute $7,000 every single year. Remember, the government is restricting you because that's how powerful the Roth IRA is. And then we'll talk a little bit about my buy histories, what I sell, and all that good stuff. So now let's get to Google, one of my favorite companies, and I think right now it is a steal. So Google, as you can see, over the years, they have been growing their revenue and their bottom line by a lot. Back in 2020, the revenue was 182 billion. Their net income was 40 billion. 2021, the revenue was 257 billion and their net income was 76 billion. Let's get all the way up to 2024. It went up to 350 billion and their net income, which is how much after they paid everybody, paid the bills and all that good stuff, is $100 billion. So this company is not dying. This company is growing and is dominating. And let's talk about why. Let's look about Google's portfolio. So when you're buying Google, you're pretty much buying an ETF. Look at all these beautiful companies that are inside Google. So when you're buying Google, you're technically buying all of these. You're buying YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube. YouTube has an 85% retention rate every single month. So that means 85% of the people that go on YouTube will most likely go back on YouTube within the month. Me personally, I'm on YouTube every single day. That's actually how I got a lot of my knowledge. I'm a nurse, and that's actually how I got through nursing school. There's a lot of great lectures and study tips and all that great stuff on YouTube. So YouTube is amazing. They got Fitbit, they got Google Maps, they got DeepMind, Waze, Waymo. So Google is not going anywhere. It's actually only going to grow. And as you can see, they have Android, Google checkout. So PayPal, all that good stuff is going to be dominated in the Play Store, of course. So let's talk about Google. Google is making a lot of big advancements in AI and all that good stuff, but people really think search is dying. They're thinking ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI, is taking Google's lunch and search is dying. But let me show you this. Believe it or not, OpenAI just partnered with Google because Google also owns a cloud business. So OpenAI needs to store his data, and guess who they partner with is Google. Let's watch this quick video that explains it a little bit more.
According to Reuters, OpenAI is planning to add Alphabet's Google Cloud service to meet its growing needs for computing capacity. That's an interesting move, given that Google is deeply involved in its own AI efforts, obviously. The report notes that the partnership is also a way for OpenAI to diversify beyond its reliance on Microsoft's compute power. But regardless, this is going to be a 4-month high, Sarah, on Alphabet shares, which we know had some difficult times in April and May.
Well, it's just so interesting to see competitors, partner, frenemies, right? Because they compete with OpenAI on DeepMind, and they compete on search as people are increasingly turning to search on ChatGPT. And then Google, Alphabet, and Microsoft compete, obviously. So it's just interesting to see all these relationships form and these partnerships in the race.
I mean, what it also tells you, of course, is the enormous need for compute at OpenAI. When you think about the various applications they introduce and just what that requires in terms of compute, clearly Sam Altman's going anywhere he possibly can to find it, including to, as you point out, a competitor in terms of the actual products that they have in the marketplace.
Yeah,
but
and one that we often talk about
at Google with the cloud. So.
We often talk about as an existential threat to its search business.
Yes, we do.
What's happening
there?
Yeah,
you think that they might not want to actually allow them, to do it.
I guess in the race for compute, Google Cloud.
It's an interesting decision on their part. Yeah.
We're getting.
So that's Google. As you can see, they're so powerful that their biggest competitor, or at least what people think, have to use Google's technology, in this case, the cloud business. Google is such a big moat. I think their Gemini is actually better than ChatGPT. And I really don't see this company going anywhere. We have Androids. We have the Google Pixel. They own pretty much the internet. Another thing that Google is doing, if you ever heard of Google DeepMind, they're working on robotics, and robotics and AI is what really is going to turn all this humanoid robots into really being what we really think they're going to be: self-sufficient, doing things on their own, self-driving cars. As we know, Google has Gemini, and it has Waymo, and they're actually on the roads making rides. So let's take a quick look at DeepMind and what advancements Google DeepMind is doing.
We're bringing Gemini 2.0's intelligence to general-purpose robotic agents in the physical world. To be helpful, robots need to be interactive, responding live to your actions and your voice. They need to be dexterous to complete your most complex tasks. And they need to be general to understand things in your 3D world. And all of these capabilities need to work across different physical forms. We're bringing this together in Gemini Robotics, our most advanced vision language action model. Gemini Robotics is interactive.
Can you put the bananas in the clear container?
Notice how we move the objects and the model reacts and replans on the fly.
Can you put the grapes in the clear container?
Our model's low latency means it can respond live to rapidly changing conditions and instructions. This same model can generalize to all kinds of applications where you can collaborate with the robot live. Gemini Robotics is dexterous. High dexterity tasks are some of the biggest challenges in robotics.
I can fold the orange square into an origami fox.
That sounds fun. Why don't we try that?
Sure. Did you know that the word origami comes from the Japanese words ori, meaning to fold, and kami, meaning paper?
These capabilities are enabled by Gemini 2.0's spatial understanding of detailed aspects of things in your world.
I can point to where the eye should be drawn on the fox.
Most importantly, Gemini Robotics is general. It uses Gemini 2.0's world understanding to generalize across a vast range of real-world tasks.
Can you flip the red die so that it matches the number on the green die?
Many robots can execute predefined actions, but these movements are not predefined. The robot is reasoning both about what it sees and how to move. It figures out how to make the red die match just like we asked. And this generalization goes even further. This same model can generalize to tasks like this one that it's never been trained to do.
pick up the basketball and slam dunk it.
Keep in mind, these are objects the robot has never seen before. But by leveraging Gemini 2.0's understanding of concepts like basketball and slam dunks, the robot figures out the task. We're now inviting more partners to join our Trusted Testers program, where we're working together to build the next generation of robotic AI agents. Learn more about how we're bringing Gemini to the physical world at deepmind.google/robotics.
So Google is ultimately trying to be the brain of AI. And I think the moat is amazing. They have the money to do so and the power to do so. And as we just saw in the previous video, even their competitors need Google. So what about Apple? I think Apple is a dying company. It might be like the next Intel. Apple is not innovating at all. If you really think about it, a lot of people own iPhones. Why isn't Siri the best AI company in the world? Instead, if you click on Safari, what does it bring you to? It brings you to a Google webpage, and that's what users search. Why so? Why is Apple not innovating? Do you guys remember the Apple Car? What happened to that? What about the headset and the VR glasses? What happened to that? So Apple right now, they're not really innovating, and their recent innovation they made was liquid glass, which is a total joke. I'll show you a quick video about that. So Apple's not really innovating. They just have a really good product, which is the iPhone, and that might be their downfall. I still have the iPhone 11 and I have yet to upgrade. You know why? Because it works fine. All I need to do is honestly go on YouTube and check my Robinhood stock. That's what I use my phone for. Maybe make a few texts and a few phone calls, but ultimately it works fine. It does good, and I don't need to upgrade. So Apple is missing out on all these upgrading cycles because they made their phone way too good, very simple to use, but they're not innovating. They're not seeing the next step like Google is. Google is doing Waymo, is doing DeepMind. It owns YouTube, which is the largest thing that's being used on TV, surpassing Netflix. So Google is doing great. But let's take a look at the failure of Apple. This is the great innovation that they had.
More personal and puts greater focus on your content, all while still feeling instantly familiar. And for the first time, we're introducing a universal design across our platforms. This unified design language creates a more harmonious experience as you move between products, while maintaining the qualities that make each unique. Inspired by the physicality and richness of Vision OS, we challenged ourselves to make something purely digital feel natural and alive, from how it looks to how it feels as it dynamically responds to touch. To achieve this, we began by rethinking the fundamental elements that make up our software. And it starts with an entirely new expressive material we call liquid glass. With the optical qualities of glass and a fluidity that only Apple can achieve, it transforms depending on your content or even your context and brings more clarity to navigation and controls. It beautifully refracts light and dynamically reacts to your movement with specular highlights. This material brings a new level of vitality to every aspect of your experience. From the smallest elements you interact with to larger ones, it responds in real time to your content and your input, creating a more lively experience that we think you'll find truly delightful. Elements once considered for rectangular displays have been redesigned to fit perfectly concentric with the rounded corners of the hardware. This establishes greater harmony between our software and hardware, where thoughtfully considered groups of controls free up valuable space for your content. Liquid glass is translucent and behaves just like glass in the real world. Its color is informed by your content and intelligently adapts between light and dark environments. And as a distinct functional layer that sits above your app, the material dynamically morphs when you need more options or as you move between views. We've applied this same dynamic nature across other experiences. Instead of taking over your whole display, alerts appear from where you tap. Context menus expand into an easily scannable list. When you scroll, tab bars shrink to elevate what's in front of you, and they instantly come back the moment you scroll up. Your entire experience becomes more intuitive, from navigating apps to system experiences.
So that's Apple's biggest innovation. I mean, they're good at selling, but honestly, this is a joke. Look at what Google is doing. They're looking into the future. And what is Apple doing? Liquid glass? Like, come on. And if you look at it, if you look at the Apple stock and the Google stock, Apple is far way more expensive than Google is. So you get in Google, all these great businesses. I mean, yes, Apple has a great subscription model, but this is your innovation. I don't really see anything big with coming with Apple other than stock buybacks. But eventually, I think as a dying company, it needs to innovate and is left behind. It's the AI race just left it. They left it in the dust, man. Like they're not even trying. They're using other partners. Like I said, if you click on Safari, the first page that opens up is Google. And if they leave Google, they're gonna use Microsoft Bing or whatever or Chat GPT. But Apple is not coming up with their own products. They're not innovating. And the stuff they are innovating with, they have been a failure. The VR glasses, the Apple Car, and look at this liquid glass. Yeah. So to me, if I would have to compare the two, Google will be my big, 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 big winner here. Far better than Apple. So now let's talk about the big story of the day, which is the Air India crash. And funny how it's a Boeing. For some reason, we don't hear about anything about Airbuses crashing or anything like that. It's always a Boeing. I mean, today Boeing stock went a little bit down, but something a little bit sketchy on that. Every crash we have, it's a Boeing. I used to own Boeing, got rid of it. Let's take a quick peek at this video. It's sad, honestly.
Just happening at Air India, or recently, a plane has crashed in the western city of Ahmedabad. Air India's chairman saying on X that Flight 171 on the way to London's Gatwick Airport was involved in that tragic accident. Police say the plane crashed in a civilian area outside the airport. About 242 passengers on board. According to Flight Radar 24, the aircraft was a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner delivered to Air India about 11 years ago. In a statement, Boeing says it's aware of the initial reports, working to gather more information, trying to determine whether there's any possible. I guess at this point there may be survivors. There were some reports that there were some ambulances leaving the scene.
This happened initially on takeoff. It was only up by less than 700 feet in the air.
700 feet. And with all the problems from the 787 that we've seen, I don't think there's been a fatality or a whole failure or anything close to this. And the shares of Boeing, as you can see down 17. Phil LeBeau joins us now on the Squawk Newsline. Good morning, Phil. What can you tell us?
Good morning, Joe. I'm actually over here in Paris ahead of the Paris Air Show, where we will be listening and hearing from Boeing CEO Kelly Warburg next week, as well as the CEO of GE Aerospace, Larry Culp. We believe that the Air India plane, we haven't confirmed this yet, but we believe it had two GE engines powering it. Look, we're so early in this investigation that it's hard to know exactly what would have caused a catastrophic loss of power and the ability to get any lift, and you have a crash within basically a minute of takeoff. So what you're looking.
So it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. You know, over 240 people died. Look, this is the power of the stock market. As you can see, we're overnight, and as you can see, major crash. But who cares? Stock market goes up and down. But that's the story of the game. But back to the crash. Very, very sad. Over 240 people died. One person did survive. The airplane just basically took off and crashed. So imagine the airplane ready to do a long flight, filled with fuel, crashing into a very, very heavily settled area. Very, very sad. Boeing is very suspicious. But that's it for today. I hope you join me for my journey and learn something out of this. And I'll probably be documenting it maybe once a week. And it depends what I buy, what I don't. And I'll tell you exactly what I do. So I'll see you on the next one, and I hope you enjoy.